moving and getting
Hmm.
loads, like the Midwest, and that's how I keep moving.
So what would you tell someone like that's like they going over the road, but they might be in an area that's not so good, and they just sitting there for like 2 and 3 days? Like, what would be your advice to someone like that? What should they be doing that they're not doing?
So, first thing you should do when you get on the road and you're in this industry, you got to study the map. You got to know what cities are hot zones around you. So, if I'm in, for example, if I'm in South Carolina, right, and I get a load from Chicago to North Charleston, South Carolina, and that's about 800 miles. So, you guys have an idea. And out of Chicago, you're going to get at least $1 a mile. So, you're over there. You're in North. You just dropped off. It's 8 a.m. In my brain, okay, I just dropped off. I know that this area is pretty slow,
Yeah,
so let me go to the good part of South Carolina. Let me deadhead 2 hours to reposition myself into Spartansburg or Greer, South Carolina, towards that middle area, closer to Charlotte, to those cities, because I know that's a better area. If you don't know that it's a better area and you're obviously new in the business, then you can wait a few hours and see how it goes. And if you're not getting anything, then you look for a big city. You can do research, you can ask people, or if you have a mentor
mm,
like Tony, you can learn, you can ask. That's the benefit of that.
no, that's dope. That's dope. That was good because a lot of people do struggle with that. A lot of times sometimes, like you said, they need to look at the map. They really got to learn the map, learn the areas that's around them, learn like slow areas over areas that's booming where freight just keep coming through. And like that's the type of you want to put yourself in that type of position, to keep moving because that's the key to this game. We got to keep the wheels moving. Someone said I sold my box truck, now moving to the Sprinter van. Let's get it. Boss, who that? What's your name? Boss lady. Boss lady.
I get a lot of people that always ask me, yo, Marlon, what's better, box truck or sprinter van? And they're both good in their dedicated areas. But I would say the sprinter van has a little more pros because
Yeah.
one, you don't get those long wait times that truckers get to. There's no regulations, no wait stations, nothing, ELD, nothing. Because on box truck, even though you don't have to on a certain amount of weight, once you get over that weight, you have to. And
Yeah.
you're more
Mm,
inclined to be stopped by the DOT or the police if you're in a
yeah.
box truck versus a sprinter van.
Someone asked, "Are you running one van making the 5,000 a week?"
Yeah, that's one van.
Absolutely. Also, someone said, "How much would you pay up front for a cargo van?" It depends on what type of van you want. I mean, if you want a Ford Transit, stay between 25 and 35K. It all depends on the year, make, model, mileage. All of that plays a role. The condition, the condition report, all of that plays a role. But I'll say 25 to 35K, most definitely. What would be some advice that someone that's new getting into the game? What would you tell them? Because a lot of people make a lot of mistakes getting into this business. So, what some advice you can get them at 24 years old? Like I said, you almost did a 500,000 last year. So,
Mhm.
someone that's they might be wanting to get into the game, but what would you tell them? Like, what type of moves they need to make?
Okay, so the first thing I would recommend everybody is, do your research, look into like what's in your area, look at vans, insurance quote. So if it all makes sense, the insurance quote plus the van and everything that you have to pay for, then I would try to get you probably someone who knows what they're doing, whether it be a mentor or a friend that you have in the industry. Try to find someone who already has experience so you don't make the same mistakes they're making. Because
Yeah,
some people, I've seen it a lot, they just go in blindly and then they end up with a load in Oregon and they're stuck there for a week and they can't get out because they don't
yeah,
understand there's good areas, there's
mhm,
bad areas. They don't understand how much to bid on the rate.
yeah.
Some people, they see things on Facebook or scammers and they get scammed by random dispatch
I
companies and
know.
they end
Talking
up
about
working
round
for.
trips,
Yeah.
slot fee.
Yep.
One of my mentees sent me that today, man. He got a box truck. They was like, "Yo, we got a round trip for you, $1,200, Texas to Texas." I'm like, "Yo, they need to cut it out."
Yeah, there's crazy scammers. Like if there's any dispatch companies out there asking you to put a deposit, get rid of them because that's not how this industry works.
Absolutely not. Someone asked, "Are you working with direct shippers, brokers, or with dispatch companies?"
So in my case, I do have a few good brokers and direct shippers that sometimes give me loads and they boost up my weeks. For
Yeah.
example, 2 weeks ago when I was on the road, I grossed about for 8 days, I grossed $6,800.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna break that down tomorrow in our class.